tried once again. This is your brain. This is your brain on drugs. Questions?
Yeah! What are you on? Looks like a frying pan and some eggs to me.
Set me free. Don't fall asleep to dream.
Okay, well, you saw parts 1 through 4, so I guess it's time to address 5 and 6. So I wrote some more things down in my dream here. So number 5, the only thing I can say is the title screen of it gave it a little bit of promise there, but after that it kind of goes downhill. Danny Hassel's back as Dan, Lisa Wilcox is back as Alice, whoever the hell played the dad, he's back, and we got a bunch of new fodder for Freddy. Alice starts losing control of her dreams, and this is apparently due to the baby that's growing inside of her and dreaming. They kind of tried to explain this, but the connection between a baby's dream and your mother, I need that explained a little bit better, because that doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense. So Alice starts dreaming while she's awake, okay? And this is because, again, the baby's dreaming. I have no idea what this connection's about, and I'm not going to go on with it too long because it doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense. But it works for the film, I guess, so we'll just move on. This movie is really fucked up compared to the rest. I mean, he gets birth because Alice is pregnant and his mother is burying him in a dream. It's such a mess. It's like pancake mix on a rug, man. It's that bad. Dan dies in this, and I actually felt really bad for Alice because they do a really good job at the end of part 4 and at the beginning of part 5 of showing like this kind of nice high school romance type of thing leading into a marriage. She's the big football star. I don't know what the hell she's doing in life, but the diner's a good start, I guess. I don't know. And it amazes me too, these kids still need explanations in part 5. Is it not the same high school? Is it not their same friend? Like, how are all these people dropping off and everybody's oblivious to it? It's like 1/3 of the town's kids now are dead, and everyone's just like, yeah, nothing's going on, man. We're just, we're going to school, and yeah, we haven't even heard of it. What's that, Freddy? No, I haven't heard it. Like, it's fucked up, but anyways, I give up on this topic, so I'm not going to address that again in the next, when I'm looking at part 5 or anything like that. Okay, well, the daydreams make Alice seem completely crazy to everybody else, namely Yvonne and like a doctor and Dan's parents. And then Dan's parents, I guess because of this, they want to take custody of the child, which is kind of reasonable from an outside perspective that she's nuts, and they're kind of concerned about that. But the problem with putting that scene is, it just kills the innocence of the whole series. You're probably thinking, well, how innocent could a series be that has a bunch of murders? It's the tone of it, and then they add in this kind of really real problem that affects single mothers from time to time, and it was too real. Whereas the rest of the series isn't real. It's a playful feel, even in its more serious moments. Krueger's mom is kind of cool. I mean, they gave some more background on her in this, but before they said in part 3 that she died during childbirth. In fact, she said it. And now there's a whole news story behind it that Freddy might have hung her and then took her body and then all this other stuff. It makes no sense at all, and it just... Okay, so let's take a look at some of the characters in this movie. So there's Alice. Alice is kind of the same deal, just less naive in number 5. I guess she seems a little bit more mature. They've graduated at this point, so they're no longer like kids. They're like transitioning into the adults. There's the dad. He played a pretty good role. A complete switch from number 4, where he's this drunk that doesn't care or understand what's going on, doesn't believe the kids. I don't know if he believes her now necessarily. I mean, you'd think he might clue into it, but he does a total 180 in this film and actually sticks up for Alice instead of putting her down, which I like that part. It's with the parents, Dan's parents and all that. It's pretty cool. So that's the dad. Danny, I mean, Mark says the best.
It's just a little blood guy.
I know what it is, you big dumb jock.
Yeah, he is a big dumb jock, and well, he's not dumb. he's pretty stereotypical, and he's too goody good. So I was actually shocked the first time I saw it that he died so early, because typically those characters make it on. Mark is actually my favorite character in Part 5 because he's like the most open-minded. He's playful. He's into comics. I have various friends that are into comics. I was into it at one point myself. But I'm not going to give you the backstory and how much of a nerd I was and still am. So he was pretty cool. Greta, yeah, of course she's hot. Not much to the character though. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Her death, you could actually make a case that it addresses modeling and anorexia and stuff like that, but that's a little bit too deep for just a Nightmare review. And then Yvonne, she is so frustrating in this. She is such a skeptic to the point that it's absurdly skeptic. Now, I'm all for being skeptic. That would be if somebody came up to me and said, hey, I'm having dreams about this guy with claws. I'd be like, all right, well, maybe you should seek professional help or possibly some medicine to help you with that. But she's just too hardcore, and her acting is the worst in the film. I would say. It's Freddy in this one. Freddy is not the same Freddy Krueger. Part 4, he started to kind of drift a bit, quite a bit from number 3 and 2 and 1 as being a rather serious character. But by the time he hits number 5, he's just off the map. Like it's a different character altogether. It's like he reminds me more of the Joker from Batman than he does Freddy Krueger from the original. The original parts of the series, 1, 2, and 3. And as far as the kills go, they're not that interesting. There's not as many. I would say the best one is maybe Dan, I guess. I mean, he was in the car and all that, but it was kind of disappointing to see him go. Mark's was ridiculous. I mean, the comic book thing in Super Freddy. No comment on Super Freddy. Greta's was kind of gross. I guess that's really all there is to say. Some of the dream sequences. Actually, I'll talk about the dream sequences in a little bit. And just to round up the basic plot of the movie before I start getting into my thoughts and some of the things I was thinking about when I was watching the movie. Alice's baby, like, I mean, check this out. I mean, was that shot really needed? Anyways, the ending. Like Krueger's mom, tells the kid that was in Jurassic Park. I don't know if you remember, but that's a kid that's annoying in the beginning of Jurassic Park. I don't know. He like barfs Freddy's souls back into him, and to me that would tell me that he would get more strength because of the souls going back in him. So that didn't make sense. Fine, it sucks, but fine. I mean, that's the way it ended. Okay, so let's move on to some things that I noticed about the film. This is the first film that I actually saw Freddy fearful. I know at the end of Part 2, he looked kind of like beat down and worn down by the power of love and all that. I made fun of that. But there's a part in the asylum where he actually looks scared like the children, and that is just so out of character for this character. Of Freddy Krueger, it reminds me of like if they turned in Part 6, Michael Myers before he kills somebody picks up some flowers and plants them or something. Like, how does that make sense, and how is it consistent amongst the character? Does it like so that's just bizarre. I don't know. That just demeans the image of what we think of when we think of Freddy, which didn't even appear in number 6. Like, they dropped that aspect. It was just that one scene that was just like, what the fuck? Now Freddy's like afraid of, and it's in a dream too. Like, manipulate the dream, or was that his mom's dream, or who knows? The opening sex scene is gross as shit. I can't make out what, like, it's not like I'm watching Nightmare movies to like, watch softcore porn or whatever. In fact, I don't think there's no sex really at all in Nightmare movies, which is different from most slasher movies. But if you can make out what parts of the body are what, it looks like something's boiling under somebody's skin. Is it a back? Is it a thigh? Is it Dan? Is it Lisa? It was the worst shot sex scene I've ever seen. Not that that's what's drawing me to a Nightmare movie, But if you can make out what's actually going on there, besides the fact that they're having sex, like not to get into positions like were they spooning or was a little cowgirl going on, I have no idea. Just to address the sex scene one more time, and then I'll let that go. After she has sex, she goes to the shower, and the shower does the thing, and she's actually dreaming. So this would lead me to believe that the sex that actually happened was in a dream, I suppose, unless she fell asleep after the dream. Maybe it was really good sex and she wore her out. But as far as I'm concerned, it probably happened during the dream. And this violates slasher rules because the sex has to happen. I thought this was the rule in any slasher. If you have sex, you're dead meat. And it's like consummating your role in the slasher. Your fate is set. So he didn't really do it, so he's not guilty. Some more points that I'd like to make. Like when they're in an asylum, there's this random guy, I guess, they got all these lunatics just walking around. I don't know that any asylum in the 19th or the 20th century actually did that. You'd have to do research on that. But anyways, there's this guy like counting. He's like counting 100 people, but they're all in motion. Like, how can you? That's like trying to count Where's Waldo characters if they're all moving around on the paper. It just doesn't make any sense. And how did they not spot the one nun? Like, all these guys are wearing like ragged clothing. She's in bright white, and they're like, yeah, I think we got it. That's about 100 people, so let's just close the door. And why did they think that a nun just walking around with 100 maniacs is safe just because they know she's there? Like, she's in just as much danger, so what the hell is she doing there? And they're all nuts anyways. What is she, spreading the word to people that hear words in their head in the first place? Like, so that doesn't make any sense. Okay, so let's get on to some of the things that I noticed. This particular shot right here of the asylum, like, what is this? Dracula's castle? When did it at Weston Hills? I'm assuming that's what it is, or Weston Hill, whatever. It didn't look like this in part 3. So this honestly looks like, Vlad's palace here. Another part, Alice, when she's talking to her friends, she says that Freddy murdered 20 to 30 kids. Why is that such a vague number? Like, obviously the kids that would disappear, there would be a number, and given what happened, they would know the amount of number. It's like saying, there was a car accident, and in this car, anywhere from 3 to 9 people died. It's not a situation where he was a serial killer that hid bodies. Well, he did, but each of these kids would be accounted for. So I don't get what the number is so vague. It would make more sense if she said he was believed to kill 26 kids. Okay, that would make sense, but you don't give this broad, well, 20, 30, I don't know, let's toss a coin, alright, 28. That's essentially what they're doing. And there's one part, okay, look at this. Doesn't it look like you're falling into like a giant colon? Like, is this Freddy's ass that you're falling into? It's ridiculous. And looking at the house on the street, why hasn't anybody done anything about this house? Like, it's all boarded up and stuff. That is brutal for depreciating the value of your home on that block if there's an eyesore like that. So the real estate companies really should look at 1428 and decide what to do with it. Like, maybe add an addition, clean it up, renovate it, and try to resell it. Anything like that. I know it's all of a sudden it turned into Freddy's house, but I'd be really pissed if I lived in that neighborhood and I had that eyesore on my block. And then another really quick thing, the fridge animation, really cool. Pee-wee's Playhouse, anybody? So the characters in this as well, you don't get attached to them. They're probably the least. You can make an argument for part 6, but these characters for me, I get the least attached to, aside from Mark. So they're the worst in the series, I think. There's another thing too about Yvonne. Mark shows her the injuries that he got during a dream, and Yvonne's like, oh, he kind of brushes it off. Like, what does she think? And he's convinced now that Alice is telling the truth. Does Yvonne think that Alice like went MK Ultra on Mark and like wiped out his memory and implanted new? Like, now you got 2 people, Yvonne, and you also have 2 people dead. Like, and you're still skeptical. Like, it just, for this movie, like, I'd be skeptical in real life if that actually occurred. But in this movie, it's like, come on, man, like, it's happening, dude. Like, you gotta start dealing with this guy. And another thing about her friends, did Alice know any of these people in part 4? It's like every time something new happens, like 6 makes sense, it's a whole new characters. 4, fine, they're integrated back into school, but where the hell was Greta and Yvonne and Mark and well, Dan was there, but where were these people? And it's almost as if they have this long history together, like they're so chummy and they're friends and their parents know each other, they're graduating together. Where the hell were they for the rest of the series in this school? So, you know, the character introduction and exits throughout the series were good, and then so we're hitting number 5 and 6 here, so I don't have a ton of good things to say about it, but I'll just put a little qualifier on here. I do like these movies for completely different reasons than I like 1 through 4. So I just want to put that out there. So moving on. And Alice in this one part, just check it out.
I've seen her.
No kidding, Alice. Like, I wonder who it could be. Possibly Kruger's mom. It's the fucking headline of the goddamn article, for Christ's sake. Like, so I mean, I've seen her before. It's like seeing like a sports figure on a newspaper, and it's like, you know, LeBron James MVP. It's like, I've seen this guy before. Who could he be? Well, why don't you read the headline or the title of the article that says Kruger's mom's dead, blah blah blah. And you're still mystified by who this person could be. That's beyond retarded. So then there's later on in the film, like, Yvonne's tired as hell. Not because she's staying awake to avoid Freddy, but because she's working as, I guess, an intern or something like that in a hospital while she's in school. So she's really tired. And so she's so tired that she decides, hey, I need to get some practice in instead of some sleep. So as tired as I am, let's go on a high dive diving board and start doing rather dangerous stuff that you need to be trained for. Like, high diving is kind of dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. But she's like, you know, whatever, I'm exhausted. So that's just something I thought of, which was, you know, I would have thought twice about it. But her dream is really inventive. I mean, the board coming up, the diving board coming up like that and whatever, it really reminded me of Tim Burton. Like, if Tim Burton was going to do a dream scene, I would imagine it would look something like that, because it reminds me so much of Beetlejuice, and especially at one part in Beetlejuice where the banister railing kind of comes up. That's what that scene reminds me of. So I also came up with a little theory of how Alice could have solved this a little bit earlier. So Freddy won't kill Alice, right, because of his trying to take over the baby. So instead of warning these other kids, which I know Freddy's trying to go after, but instead of, which he's not even back yet, he's going into these kids, so how is he back in these other people's nightmares? Number 4 kind of put the end to that, like, but fine, anyways, he's going to other people's nightmares. So why the hell didn't Alice go in and fight him one-on-one from the beginning, knowing that he wouldn't kill her? Wouldn't that have saved her friend? Like, she's avoiding, she doesn't know when to go to sleep, when not to sleep. Apparently it doesn't matter because she can dream at any point. But why not do that? I mean, you stupid bitch. Like, you're like, hey, we need help in this and that. You're the only one that's immune to this guy, and you're sending in, like, it's so, fuck, man, you fucked that up. Alright, so now we move on to part 6. Now, if you think part 5 kind of slipped up a bit, part 6 fell off the frickin' plateau. Off the top of a mountain, as high as you can get, and they landed right in Buffalo shit. That's how bad this movie is. So as ridiculous as part 5 was, he was dead. In fact, in number 3, there's no way of coming back in my eyes. He's dead, and he even transferred up into, I don't know, hell or whatever. Number 4, he was dead. Number 5, like, how much deader could you possibly get? And then he completely, and then he's back in part 6. Why? Just cause. He's just back, you know, Freddy's back. No real explanation. The explanation that they do give is that they fabricate his daughter. Like, they just brought in a daughter. They're like, what the hell, he had a kid, so that'll be part 6. And he resides in her, her DNA, her dreams, like, how is he connected to this girl? So that's the connection. That's what they got. That's what they gave us. It's the best they had. That's what the writers came up with. Okay, so at the beginning of part 6, they give you like a map of the USA, and then they just randomly throw Springwood in there somewhere. Anyways, and then it gives you this little explanation at the bottom of the screen that they say there's new evidence of a surviving teen. Well, it turns out that surviving teen, I guess, was John Doe. But that's maybe not who they were referring to. They obviously must have been kind of more pointing towards Maggie, who isn't a teen. But all that aside, to my knowledge, there's an entire town just wandering around crazy. How nobody notices this? Actually, first of all, who's investigating this teen? And if they investigated this teen surviving, why is there not more attention on this town that only has adults wandering around, like now in fairs and like it's crazy? Another problem with that is, how the hell do they import food? Or do they work? Or how do they get fuel into the town to drive their cars? How do they pay their hydro bill? Never mind. But anyways, John Doe, like, he's annoying. I don't think he's a particularly good actor. I forget his name. Although he does have one funny line.
Well, what do you call that? Rational?
The rolling down the hill credits sequence made me absolutely sick, and I'm not really sure why they thought this was pleasant. Nobody wants to be dizzy and trying to read while being dizzy at the same time. Like, it's the most distracting possible way to put credits in. Let's have some guy roll down the hill, and we'll do all these weird things with the camera to make it even more nauseating. But read, make sure you read the credits. It's nauseating, you'll throw up, but we're gonna give those credits in there. So that was stupid. Okay, so in the movie there's this shelter, and Maggie's like a counselor. I guess she's some sort of counselor. So there's Spencer, there's Tracy, there's Carlos, and then John Doe joins them. And those five are essentially the group that we're going through part 6 in, rather painfully. The three kids, Carlos, Tracy, and Spencer, they want to get out. There's this obvious weird connection between John Doe and Maggie, which gets explained in the movie. It's very vague and not the best plan, really. I mean, there's so many variables in this plan not working for Freddy, but if you watch the movie, maybe you'll understand what I'm talking about. So now we can just skip to the part where they get to Springwood, because honestly nothing important really happens in the first like 25 minutes. I guess they're trying to build characters, but all they essentially do is say, this is what this person's afraid of, A, B, C, D, and that's how the dreams are going to go. Which earlier on in the second part of my franchise review, I was talking about how it just became evident that he was attacking specific fears. In part 3, it really worked because it wasn't overdone. This is like, you're afraid of spiders, or I'm just making shit up, but you're afraid of spiders, I'm a spider, here comes, like, it's just too transparent. Spencer is kind of a little dipshit. Like, he talks about how bad his life is. Now, okay, people's lives are relative to themselves, but listen to this. Tracy was molested as a kid. That's awful. It also takes away from, again, the innocence of the series, because that's a really serious thing, and doesn't really, all of a sudden it just becomes like a fun movie that doesn't make a lot of sense to a very real situation. And that was like, okay, well, yeah, that's real and that's important and that's horrible, but not something I would necessarily write into a nightmare film. And Carlos's mom, like, used to shove things in his ear. She was an abusive mom. Spencer just doesn't get attention, and his dad wants him to be like him. Like, why is he even in a group home? And if they have that much money, I mean, there's other options. So in the end, he's just basically a spoiled brat. Okay, so anyways, in the carnival scene, we got Roseanne. Anyways, no comment on that. The movie does have its moments, but imagine how far we've gone from parts 1 to part 6. If you look at part 1 in Freddy's character, I don't think I really need to go into detail as to how far the series drifted from the original concept. It's just amazing. But, you know, in a strange way, this actually satisfies me. The town, being completely wiped out of kids. Now there should be no doubt that Freddy's the culprit. I just had to get that point out there. There's no fear of sleeping in this one, except for John Doe not wanting to go to sleep. But everybody else, they just withdrew that from the entire series. It's like, it's the worst thing, you might as well remove his glove. It would be like Halloween if there was Michael Myers and you took out of the story that he was actually going after his family. That would be fine if that was happening at the beginning of the series and there was no link to his family, but then you remove what makes part of the story concept, that he's doing this for a purpose, and Freddy has a purpose, or at least there's elements to this series that are consistent, and then boom, they just take it right out. So with the exception of John Doe, that was gone. Yeah, like I mentioned before, Tracy's dream just gets a little bit too real. Doc in this, he's like the Yoda of dreams. He only has like 9 minutes of screen time, but he's orchestrating this demise of Freddy, which in my mind, again, Heather Langenkamp as Nancy Thompson, that's how it should have ended. Where it began, it should have just come full circle. She comes back, but this guy who we don't even know, of course we know him, he's been in other movies, but this guy we don't even know all of a sudden comes up with this plan, which is the same plan they essentially had in the first one. And what a way to kill off Freddy, like his mouth coming out, like it's just one big face palm. Like, how could you do this? But at least they kept him dead. They moved on to other hypothetical movies and different directions, and then a revamp. That's fine, but you know, thank goodness they left him dead, because what would the next one be? Freddy's not really dead, but we're gonna get him this time. Part 7, you know. So that's fine. And then Doc, just to address this, he's like, anything can be used in the dream world. Well, first of all, at number 3, they didn't require any external things to bring in with them into the dream. So now you're just making shit up. And you're putting on her glasses and you say, okay, you can use it for anything. Just to be clear on this, the glasses thing was a gimmick. This movie was touted to be a 3D movie, and there's parts of the movie that were supposed to be in 3D. So when she puts the glasses on, that's when the audience was supposed to experience the 3D feel. That being said, it wasn't effective, it was stupid, and the glasses, I guess, were useful, but... So, some other things I noticed about the film, about nearing the end of the film, you actually see the sign. It says 15,000 people are in this town. So, again, this is such a screw-up. How does nobody know about this town? Or do they? And if they do know about this town, how come nobody's helping them? Is it like, I know there's pockets of places in countries where things are just ass backwards, but this is something that people would know about. This would be like on CNN or something. And Maggie does this one thing that is just... it's uncalled for. It's so out of place. She decides to get up and, you know, she's like, I'm going to take charge, and then she just sweeps off her desk. So to conclude my thoughts on the entire series, I don't really have to go over a ranking, but if I had to, I'd say 1 and 3 are probably tied, followed up by 4, then 2, and then 5, and then 6. I mean, if you wanted to hear my countdown. But Freddy is really stuck in the 80s. He was an 80s icon. His legend and the character carried on to this very day and for decades to come, I'm sure. But it changed drastically from 1 to 6, and that's what I consider the canon of the series, the True Nightmare series. And he's just an icon that will never be reproduced, not even remakes. Jackie Earle Haley gave it his best shot. I thought he acted terrific, but this is a character that is unfortunately stuck in time. You'll never be able to reproduce this. So what we need is a new Elm Street character, a new Elm Street movie completely. And let's let Freddy earn his rest from film history. let's lay him down and just appreciate the films that we had, and look at this novel character with, you know, nostalgia and good memories. So if I was to propose something to a New Line Cinema, Platinum Dunes, I would say, why not A Nightmare on Oak Street, with a completely new character with different circumstances, and maybe recapture some of the magic that you had with that series, instead of rehashing old ideas, and maybe bring a whole new character, possibly someone as influential as Freddy, to a whole new generation of kids and teens to look back on, like I get to, and like many of you get to, with nostalgia and good feelings, good fun, and great holiday movies, especially for Halloween. I don't know really how to express in total how I feel about the series, but I think it would be beneficial to go in a new direction, and Freddy will always be iconic. He'll be up there with the top horror characters of all time. Are the movies classics? 1 and 3 I would say certainly are. The rest were complimentary and possibly not needed. But in the end, Freddy is dead, and he gave us some good memories. And that concludes my perspective on the Nightmare on Elm Street series. So thanks for watching parts 1 through 3. I have no idea what I'm going to do next, but leave some comments and some suggestions below. I guess there I'm pointing to my rug, but you know what I mean. And I'll see you in the next review. Thanks a lot for following along. Bye.